Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. I am Tom Gross.
I'm Dan Ream. I am now allowed to talk.
Yes, you are. Without being prompted, now it's your turn, Dan. Well, welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon, and we are so glad that you are joining us today. If it's the first time you've listened to Teachers in the Dungeon, thanks. Let us know what you think by jumping onto our social media. Twitter is at Dungeon Teachers, and Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Teachers in the Dungeon. If you've been with us for a long time, well, thank you so much. The adventure continues.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear noise in the background, we are day three. That's the kind of week it's been.
You can see this is taking its toll on Tom.
Yes.
It's been great, but of our summer camp.
It has been great. Yes. And we're in day 3 of our summer camp. The groups are all out playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
All the DMs are here and running games. And so we had a few minutes to sit down and talk to Teachers in the Dungeon.
Yes. So we've got this week, we're running through our creature analysis, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
Class of creature analysis.
Yes.
And we've tried to sort of link up with something to do with each month.
Right.
So you already know, if you've looked at the title, very hot, sticky July.
Yes.
Very unpleasant, hellish, one might even say, here in central Illinois. So we are looking at 2 evil alternatives: absolute freedom and absolute order. One system in which every creature does whatever it wants, leading to a brutal survival of the fittest and a complete state of entropy and chaos. And one system in which every creature knows its place and is bound by strict, unbreakable rules, binding all in servitude to one cruel master. Chaos versus control, destruction versus exploitation, demon versus devil. Bitter enemies throughout eternity fighting the blood war that will not end. So we're looking at Fiends today.
Yes. Wow, that was great. I don't know why, when I started the research for this, I was like, oh, demons are fiends. Wait, devils are fiends? And I was like, I thought devils were devils and demons were demons and fiends were fiends. They're all under the same umbrella. Mm-hmm. Interesting that like literally mortal enemies are of similar type.
Yes. And yeah, I find myself waxing more and more philosophical as we go through some of these things. And for me, I don't want to hijack the show, but this, I think, goes to the heart of the satanic panic of first edition, was the inclusion of demons and devils.
Right.
And so, as a Christian myself, looking at this material, what struck me honestly when I went through was as far as if you follow a Christian worldview, D&D gets it pretty close to right, other than that there's no distinction between those two in theology.
Right.
But the concepts, the evilness, and the way that evilness is presented, we all know the people that were upset and scared about D&D just didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
This is not glorifying any of these characters. These are the worst possible creatures you could ever come across because they're so selfish and irredeemable.
Correct. I never had to face that. The other side of it is, when people find out that kids like something, the assumption is there's something wrong with it. And so I think there was a bit of that as well. That, oh wait, the kids are, and they're pretending to be something else and someone else. And then they learn about fiends that are, talked about in these. And it was also a time when players, and I remember this, is as a player in the early 1980s, when we went to the monster manual, it wasn't the orcs and the goblins and things like that we wanted to fight. We wanted to fight dragons and demons and devils and
really bad ones,
and the really bad ones. Mm-hmm. And so I'll never forget the first time someone named the name Demogorgon, and I was like, what is that? That sounds really bad. And they're like, oh, it is. And then like the description came and you're like, well, I want to kill that. Yeah. So, again, in hindsight, looking back on it, understand why it happened, but at the same time, I struggle to understand why.
Yeah. So these creatures featured somewhat prominently in Telsari Adventure.
Yes.
That was the big bad, was a demon that you guys had to take out.
Right.
And so I had done an early, I guess you could say, deep dive into this lore. And for me, it was pretty easy. Okay, I get the difference between the demon devil. But if you haven't read it and you are just immersed in our popular culture, they seem like they should be the same. They're just synonyms.
Right.
So I went ahead and put a little chart together. You can't see it, folks, obviously, but we do have a chart of devils versus demons, the differences.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to run through those or
let's run through them.
Okay. So first of all, they hate each other more than they hate any other entity. And this is another thing that's sort of the nature of evil, is it turns on itself. And so you've got a never-ending conflict between the two sides called the Blood War that is fought mostly on the first layer of hell because the demons are constantly trying to invade. They are from the demons are from the abyss, devils are from hell, and the river Styx connects the two.
Oh, I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
okay.
And so that's where the conflict is coming. So we'll come back and look at that here in a second. But just to kind of run through some dichotomies here. So devils are lawful evil, demons, chaotic evil.
I guess that makes sense why the demons are always on the attack. Because they like that chaos. They like that unknowing and making that happen. Okay, that makes sense.
Devils are from 9 layers of hell. Demons are from infinite layers of the abyss. Nobody knows how many there are. They're continually spawning.
Okay.
Devils are created out of mortal souls for the most part. Demons, for the most part, emerge out of the essence of the abyss. They just
come from it.
Yes. So the abyss itself is not necessarily a living thing, but it spawns living things.
Okay. From the chaos or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
The devil's goal is to conquer and rule, essentially to create a utopia. But their view of what a utopia is, which is very orderly, everybody knows their place, but it's very cruel.
Okay.
I think this is an area where it really echoes Sauron from Lord of the Rings. His goal was not to destroy Middle Earth. It was to take it over and order it the way he thought best.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas demons simply want to consume and destroy. In fact, I think it's Orcus, one of the demon lords, they give him a quote in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes that he hates the irritating squeaking and bleating of living things. And his ultimate goal is to kill everybody and be alone. That's what he wants.
That was going to be my next question. So a demon fights for complete annihilation, potentially even of themselves.
Some, yes.
But since they continually are spawned from nothing or that of chaos, they would continue to still come whether living is living or not.
Yes. Okay. That kind of leads into our next one. The tactic, I guess you could say, of devils is to extract everything useful out of individuals or places.
Okay.
Demons leave nothing but oneself, maybe, which is what you just were alluding to.
Okay.
According to devil, mortals are simply souls to be harvested. So they do have their use, and they may be protected because of that in certain situations. For demons, mortals are sheep for the slaughter. That is it. They're a plaything, nothing more.
Yep.
Devil, a quote would be, "We're the only things protecting the cosmos from demonic conquest and destruction." So to go back to that blood war thing, if either side wins, the rest of the cosmos is doomed. Because rather than spend their effort on each other, the winning one will turn and take over everything.
Oh, got it.
So the devils have a resentment. They're saying, look, we're the ones taking it on the chin here. We're the ones dying to fight these demons and protect all of you.
Mhm.
So how about a little respect?
Got it. That's the devil's.
Yeah.
That's the devil's attitude.
So comparing, we're the only things protecting the cosmos from demonic conquest and destruction. The demons' tactics is fighting is fun.
Is that a direct quote?
Not too far off. And so for devils, death is only permanent in the hells.
Okay.
If they killed anywhere else, they just respawn.
All right.
For demons, death is permanent only in the abyss.
Okay.
So since the blood war takes place on the first layer of hell,
the devils are the
devils are the ones taking it and dying permanently. Demons don't care because they'll just pop right
They'll
back.
come back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's once you see that, then it does emerge very clearly, and I like the fact that, again, from a philosophical standpoint, taken to the extreme, the true evil of every man for himself, and the true evil of let's have a system.
Right.
You know, if that becomes the only goal, then everything else is trampled.
I can't get my mind off of how without one or the other, everything is doomed.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thin thread holding the cosmos together. I mean,
and that's what they say is that so the celestials and other powers like that can watch this and see it playing out tend to not want to pick a side permanently, but will put their finger on the scale if one side appears to be getting ahead.
Okay. Oh shoot, I had a question about in the war. You may not know this, but since you've done that research in the war, how much do the lords of devils and I guess the lords of the demons and the head devils, how much are they involved in that war, or how much do they push it all off to minions?
Well, it's kind of yes to both. They are expected to, the devils are expected to, archdevils, to marshal their forces and help defend as required.
Okay.
Demon lords may or may not take an interest in it, depending on if it will benefit themselves personally.
Okay.
At any given point.
And that fits the who they are on both sides. Okay. I was asking because in language of just fiends in general, there seems to be a theme to it all, and the language that they use in the description are words like, of course, wickedness, and I think wickedness fits both sides.
Yes,
that's not a. I think it's a both, but the word that really stood out to me are the word summon. So you summon these things, and I think that's probably more relevant to demons than necessarily devils. But I think you can summon both.
It's very difficult for either to get onto the material planes.
Yeah.
So yes.
And then the other two words that stand out that fit in with my thoughts on the war are they labor. So servants labor, and that's a good choice of language to me. It's you're not really serving anything. You are laboring to do the calling or the bidding of a master or an archlord. And yeah, and actually I just tossed in the other language, and that is to do their bidding. So unless you're a top dog on either side, everything below it is laboring to either move up the ladder or they're just stuck as almost like a slave.
Yes.
And so that's why I asked about the wars, because my guess was it is largely minor demons and minor devils that are fighting and losing their lives.
Mostly, yes. So to kind of build on that point, yes, there is another distinction. Devils, more powerful devils used to be little minions. Okay. They must perform well enough to get promoted. So they have to be pulled up by somebody who's above them already in the ranks. Whereas for demons, it is you are vicious and fight hard enough to kill everything around you, and eventually
And that's how you become
metamorphose into something more.
And the devils, you have like an archdevil of each layer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like the one is the lowest rank of the.
So there's 10 archdevils to rule 9 layers. There's one that is double. There's 2 that kind of work together and kind of fight in one layer.
Yeah. I can't remember who that is.
So I had them written down, but I didn't, or I saw them written down, but I didn't actually do that. But it's interesting. They don't necessarily, they kind of go along with 7 deadly sins. They're all in there. There is an archdevil of money and greed. There's an archdevil of sort of betrayal, pride, lust, those sorts of things.
Got it.
But it's not obviously there's more than 7 of them, so it's a little more complicated than that.
Right.
And they've built up lore that there are former archdevils who were removed from their position for one reason or another, who are scheming to get back. So even though this is very orderly, this is still evil consuming itself, constantly fighting, struggling against each other.
Okay.
And so, yes, so as you go down the layers of hell, you get more and more powerful. And the couple of interesting things, the ruler of the top layer, Avernus, which is the one where the war is taking place, actually used to be an angel, Zariel.
Okay, that's the Lord of the First.
Yeah, so she was an angel that was tasked with watching the battle and just reporting back, and she got too into it and wanted to fight. So she jumped down and fought.
That's what, okay.
So that's how that happened. And then at the lowest level, we've got the ruler of them all, Asmodeus.
Okay.
And he is, each devil has a quota of souls they have to gather. And so Asmodeus, as the leader, kind of gets a share of all of that.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, and then the devils themselves then below that are in 13 ranks in all.
Oh, I didn't realize that they were ranked too.
Yep. There's archdevils, greater devils, lesser devils, and lemures. But some of those are subdivided.
Okay.
So looking just quick again, this I think maybe when we can revisit and look at more individual concepts and examples. But if you look at the images of devils, they're all at least vaguely humanoid. They all tend to have arms and legs and a head,
right?
Rather than and tend to sort of reflect
right
a human sort of structure, some more than others, compared to the demon lords, which some of them are completely alien. So they're a little closer to probably being like, I don't know, recognizable or, and again, as they're set up as people that come as entities that come to you with a contract or a bargain. When you role play, it's much easier for a devil to be involved in a social encounter than a demon. Right, because a demon is, as we've mentioned several times, chaotic and it wouldn't parlay in most cases. Whereas a demon, that's what they thrive on, is that conversation to try to trick you, or devil, to trick you and manipulate you and all of that. And if you get them to agree to a rock solid contract, they'll follow whatever contract they eventually will sign. That what happened with Artaxis? Yeah, because Artaxis was a Camion. But a devilish one, so. Yeah. And then you also had one, you met a bearded devil early on in Slight, and you made a deal with him not to attack each other till the enemy was dead or something like that. And then he either got confused or didn't realize and started attacking you guys before the enemies, and you called him out on it. And it just, I forgot about that. that causes major catastrophic damage to them in the hells if they break a contract.
Break a contract.
So he was very sad about that.
Interesting. Yes, I remember. I forgot about that. Yeah, it was a real technicality too, if I remember right. But nonetheless,
those are what he
broke it.
One other thing about devils, and that's about all I've got on them. Like I said, I didn't think we don't have time to go through many individual ones.
Right.
But one that I find particularly interesting, just because of the looks of it, was in Mordenkainen's Tomopho. It's called a Maragon. And this is a mid-level devil humanoid, but they all wear a metal mask.
Oh. And
so you never see their faces. And the interesting thing is the image is of like a Renaissance cherub.
Okay.
Like it's a very like a baby face mask on this very threatening figure, which to me was really fascinating. I found that to be really interesting. So that one I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I've used that a bit, and we'll use them probably again just because of their look.
So he's mid-level, is what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anything else about devils questions you have, or anything else that you found, or?
No, I don't have anything. I'm saving. I think I told you beforehand, but I'm saving. I made a thesaurus. Of fiends. So at the end, I want to share my thesaurus of fiends. That when I was reading about them, I was like, okay, all these words are of awfulness, and so I created a list of these words that were used in describing these demons, and so or these fiends. So I wanted to share that. So now, are you moving on to demons then? Mm-hmm. Okay,
So not too much. We've already kind of discussed them, but just a few extra things to bring up. They're just as likely to fight each other as they are likely to fight outsiders. As I said, each abyssal layer has a ruler, but most of them are not in the book because it's infinite.
Right.
So there's only a few of those that have come to the attention of the material plane. One thing that's sort of interesting, I thought, is demon lords can function a little bit like a lich. They have an amulet. So the normal rule is for a demon, if you kill them in the abyss, they're truly gone. Mm-hmm. But not for demon lords. They have an amulet that they can put someplace hidden.
Oh, like a phylactery. Okay.
Yes, and then they can come back. But if you get control of the amulet, you have control of that.
That's cool.
Yeah, you don't necessarily kill the demon permanently. I guess you could if you crush the amulet, but you could also keep it, and then the demon would have to do whatever you said.
To have control of a demon lord.
Yep.
That's intimidating.
Yes. One other thing about demons that makes them particularly awful is that if they do manage to break through to another plane and inhabit a particular region of that plane, their very presence will begin to warp and twist it. And eventually it will become sort of an infection that spreads through the whole plane and drags it into the abyss.
Wow.
So just having demons present. Now, the sources say that almost never happens because you can't get a bunch of them to behave themselves long enough. They'll always turn on each other, kill each other, and then you don't have that
I was about to ask if there are any known demon lords that live on the material plane.
No.
But okay.
They are divided into 6 types or groups based on strength.
Okay.
So just a couple of those that I thought were sort of intriguing. There's one called the Balor, which if you look at the image, it looks like they based it on the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. You got the Chasme, big old mosquito or stinging fly.
Oh, yeah.
A Merilith is kind of cool. It's a snake lady with 6 hands, a blade in each hand.
Yep.
And a couple of others that show that just the otherness.
Okay.
You've got one thing called a Sybriax, which just looks like you took about 6 different large animals, put them in a blender, and then took pieces out randomly and just stuck them together in a gooey mess. That's a Sybriax.
Is it somehow related to the Jubilex?
I think it might be a little bit, but it's a little like they're recognizable body parts, not not ooze.
Just that. Okay, I gotcha.
And then,
so it's really awful
yes.
to look at. Okay.
And then there's a Dybbuk. This actually comes out of Jewish myth, but it is a demon that will inhabit a dead body. And if it's freshly dead, it can appear as if it's that person. It can impersonate it. But the body itself is decaying. So you have the horror of, you think your loved one's okay, and then slowly it begins to fall apart, and then you're cruelly hoaxed when this thing leaves or attacks you or whatever.
That's horrible.
Yes. And then the last one, I've used this one against you guys just because I think the image of it is just the quintessential demonic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Nabasu.
Oh, yeah.
This is just a strange, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a humanoid with elongated, thin arms and legs with razor sharp claws.
Mm-hmm.
And bat or like vampire ears and glowing red eyes and sharp fangs. Mm-hmm. It's just a killing machine.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it. It's surrounded in darkness. And
where did we encounter that?
In Gench.
Oh, okay.
And the drow were hanging onto it by a chain trying to control it.
Yes. Okay.
So those are some examples of demons. So one last thing before we jump to your list is that there are a few creatures that are called fiends that don't fall into either category.
I was about to ask, yeah.
So there are night hags.
Okay.
You'd think they're fae, but they're not.
Yep.
They're actually fiends. And they are a little nastier than the others. The others you can kind of reason with them and everything, and night hag is pretty awful. You've got the major other one is Yugoloths, which is not one we've used much. It's a whole other category with hierarchy and everything else.
Okay.
They are fiends. They're not allied with either side. They are motivated by wealth alone. So both sides attempt to bribe the Yugoloths into joining them in their fight in the Blood War.
Okay. Are they? I'm assuming that those are powerful.
Powerful enough, I think, to tip the balance.
Okay.
But yeah, they don't get used too much, I don't think, in D&D, but they're there.
Okay. Wow. You mentioned this and about that devils are humanoid and demons tend to be other.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about like a lot of the demon lords that we're aware of, like the Demogorgon has two heads and is like he's sort of a mismatch of different types of creatures. Whereas then you have Orcus, who has like the pig-like head and has like a satyr's legs and real kind of odd like that. And then you have the Jubilex, and I forget what her name is. It begins with a Z, but she's the goddess or the demon lord of fungi.
Zugdmoy.
Yes.
She is very uncanny valley.
Creepy. We've talked about this before because there's a great picture. I think it's in Mordenkainen's, and it's in a smaller version in the Monsters of the Multiverse or something like that, where it's she in the beauty that she can have but she's a beautiful woman in this case.
Yes.
Walking with her fungi like cape and such, but in the distance, larger than the sky is a Jubilex. And you're just like, oh my gosh, the awfulness of that.
Yeah. The only exception is Grazd, and there's theories about that he's actually a devil that switched sides or pretended to switch sides, and nobody really knows for sure.
When I read about him, and as I was doing this research, I was like, oh, I see where a lot of your research came for that, for a lot of those adventures. But looking at Grazd, it's that he's like such a beautiful horror or something like you can't pull yourself away from the beauty of it, but it's also awful all at the same time.
Everything is slightly wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, that was
Even his sword is like that squiggle, but it's there and recognizable, but not right. So here's the list of words that I came up with that were used to describe fiends, and most of them are devils and demons.
Okay,
but I think there's a Rakshasa or something like that I believe is a fiend as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I didn't do it. Yeah, I didn't do an exhaustive look.
Yeah. So I've got the list, and then I have some places where fiends show up in pop culture of our day. So here's the thesaurus: infest, dark, noxious, malice, viciousness, nihilistic, corpulent, butchery, slaughter, sorrow, hopelessness, rage, deception, wrath, loathsome, gruesome, repulsive.
Nice.
What a list
Yes.
of awfulness.
And I think that's probably one of the harder things about if you're going to put these into your campaign, at least for me, is to give them personality. Almost by default means to give them at least a little humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I find myself acting out as if they're not implacable, but they are. And if you're really going to play them right, they have to be far more cruel than I would ever want to be to a player.
Right. It's a good point. I mean, we've talked about this before when doing the creature shows. Some of these creatures, as a DM, I'm just intimidated to even try it.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned that, I think, with the dragons.
Yes.
I don't want to demean a dragon
Yes.
and run it.
Yes, I know what you mean.
It would be much more powerful than anything I could probably do. And if I had to play one of these demon lords or even a secondary demon to a point, I don't know that I can do it justice.
Yeah.
I can only wrap myself around so much awful.
Yeah. So you can only be so evil.
That's right. And so a lot of times in creatures like that, I have to think about the pop culture. There's my transition. So it's not a long list, but they are just ones that really sit in my mind when I think of fiends. And one of them you mentioned is, I wrote down Balrog, but that's not what they call it in the movie, or is that?
Well,
which is the Balor.
Yeah. Durin's Bane.
Kind of like a Balor. Yes. And Balors, I think, show up in other places as well. I can't think of any others. Another one that comes from R.A. Salvatore's Dritz Duerden, he and Bruner, I believe, take on a pit fiend, which I was shocked when I went, after reading this battle they had with this pit fiend. I was like, it's a pit fiend. How awful. Like, it doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
And I figured if something that has a name would be formidable, whereas not that a pit fiend couldn't be, or something that doesn't have a name itself. Not that they can't be difficult, but this pit fiend seems so difficult in this book. It doesn't have a name, but it is nasty. Yeah. It has a ton of hit points too. So the pit fiends are there. They really are kind of like the officers of those armies. Mm-hmm. A pit fiend is, or they're the workhorse. I'm not sure which. And then, of course, Stranger Things. The most recent was a lich, so that's undead. But before that was the Demogorgon.
Yes.
And so a couple places where fiends of this realm of role play fantasy come into those places where people might actually know what they are. Probably Lord of the Rings and Stranger Things are the most common to a common person. Like my wife would know what the Demogorgon is.
Right.
Whereas a pit fiend, she would have no idea. She'd think I'm talking about barbecue or something. Cool. Fiends.
Yes. It's a very dark topic, but again, it was interesting to look at and say, they're not glorified. These are horrible creatures that we should not be messing with, or players should not be, or they should fully expect nothing but evil from them.
Right. It's a good lesson in playing it's a good time to run.
Yeah.
Or get out as quickly as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, excellent. If you've played a fiend in one of your games, we'd love to hear your stories. Send us an email at teachersinthedungeon@gmail.com. It's very possible also that the fiend is something that always sits in the shadows. The players are aware of it, but you never bring it out. It's more the fear factor. Mm-hmm. That would be a good way to use a fiend as well. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today on Teachers in the Dungeon. It was pretty quiet. It's pretty quiet. It is. So it is day 3 of our summer camp, and tomorrow's the last day. So a lot of the games traditionally in the last 2 years, end of day 3 is very suspenseful.
Yes.
And there's a lot of discussion when they come back together. We gather at the very end of like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm about to die. Blah, blah, blah. And so we're looking forward to those conversations.
See what they have for us today in just a few minutes, actually.
That's right. So we'll let you go for that. Until next week, keep rolling those 20s. See you later, folks.